gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to speak out of order for the purpose of inquiring the schedule for next week to the Majority Leader.
Without objection.
And Mr. Speaker, also ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you. And with that, I yield to my friend, the gentleman from Maryland, the Majority Leader, to talk about the schedule that will be taken up next week.
I thank my friend for yielding the Republican whip from this grand state of Louisiana. As the gentleman is aware, as a result of his service in previous Congresses, when we get to the last days of the Congress, it is very difficult to predict the schedule, because the reason we have not already passed something is because it's controversial and we're trying to work out agreement. In that context, Mr. Speaker, I am advising members that they will not be expected to be back here to vote on any piece of legislation prior to Tuesday next at 6:30 p.m. The reason for that is because an agreement has not been reached on either COVID-19 legislation or the omnibus for the funding of government for the balance of the year between now and September 30th. As a result, even if an agreement were reached tomorrow, the time for the staff to put it in bill language and to file it would take us at least till Tuesday. So there's no point in having members here with nothing to do. However, as I know the minority whip agrees with me, we need to get those two bills done in one form or another. So I am hopeful that over the next 72, 96 hours, that there will be a lot of work being done. And we want to let the public know that both in the Senate and in the House, both members of the Senate, on the Senate side and on the Democratic side, on the Republican side, are working hard to resolve the differences that still exist, because I think both sides understand the critical nature of passing COVID-19 legislation, where we have millions of people, millions of small businesses, millions of healthcare workers waiting for us to resolve these issues so that they can confront the challenges that COVID-19 has created, both on the health side and on the economic side. So I would say that if we can get that done, that we may vote, as I said, as early as Tuesday at 6:30. But I will say that we will not leave. When I say leave, we will not adjourn the Congress, the 116th Congress, until we get those two bills done, because they have to be done. And so I thank the gentleman for the question, and that's the answer. And I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I agree that we need to continue these negotiations and get a resolution, and hopefully we will in the coming week, both on COVID relief and on the funding of government. We've agreed on caps already. Hopefully we maintain that and get that done to give certainty to all of our agencies. We know how much money it costs the Defense Department, for example, every week that we're in a continuing resolution, potentially billions of dollars that it costs just in procurement and the loss of those efficiencies. So I share your optimism that we can get it done, and obviously we need to continue working through these final issues. I do want to thank the gentleman, as we talked last week at the colloquy about the ALS Disability Insurance Access Act, and thank the gentleman then for scheduling it this week, and it passed without opposition. One of those examples where we do work and come together and do something that actually helps people. This will help hundreds, possibly thousands of people struggling with ALS to be able to get access to the tools they need that they, under current law, are being denied. And to see the House come together so overwhelmingly do that shows that we can, when we put our minds to it, work to actually help people, and this will help people in all of our districts. And I thank the gentleman again for getting that done, getting that bill to the floor, and ultimately now all of us coming together to pass that bill on to the Senate and the President. I want to again bring up the Paycheck Protection Program bill by Congressman Shabbat. This is a bill we've been talking about at this colloquy since September, and each week that goes by, we know that there is a list. Unfortunately, it's a long list of areas where we have disagreement. There's also a list of areas where we have full agreement. And if you look, a number of items where we've already decided we, both Republicans and Democrats, want to do this. Then there's those items that we're strongly opposed to on our side, or you're strongly opposed to on your side. And I would just continue to emphasize that these small businesses can't wait for us to get agreement or never get an agreement, while there are things we could do to help them today, to save them today. And we continue to hear the heartbreaking stories. Over 100,000 restaurants in America have closed for good, gone. I know K. Paul's restaurant in New Orleans, one of the world-famous restaurants. International chef Paul Prudhomme invented black and red fish at that restaurant. It's gone. Too many other stories to mention. We see heartbreaking stories of a restaurant owner in Los Angeles who's being told she can't operate, and literally in the same parking lot next to her tents are tents of a film studio that's able to operate. And so it's not about science in those cases. It's about some government official picking winners and losers. And unfortunately, the losers are America's small businesses. This needs to stop. I would just encourage the gentleman to bring the Shabbat bill, a bill that has wide bipartisan support, that would save. Today, we're going to lose, just today, about 150 restaurants. And that number is even higher for other small businesses, in the hundreds a day. Friday, we'll lose 150 restaurants. Saturday, we'll lose 150 restaurants. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we'll lose 150. We'll lose over 700 restaurants between now and when we come back Tuesday. We don't have to do that. If that bill was put on the floor today, it would have passed overwhelmingly, maybe unanimously, because it's an area of agreement. This idea of holding hostages, these small businesses that are dying on the vine, while we try to get agreement that we haven't been able to get since August. Why can't we just do the things that we agree on now while we negotiate the other things? Some of those things will never become law. And yet it's holding up the things that we agree on that would save small businesses today. 150 restaurants today will go under that shouldn't have gone under. We could have saved them. There's thousands of jobs tied to this at Christmas time that don't need to be gone if we just pass the things we agree on while we negotiate the things we don't, because we may never get agreement on those things. But don't let it hold these families hostage. Don't let it hold these small businesses hostage. I would just urge again that the gentleman bring the Shabbat bill to the floor as soon as possible. We know it would pass overwhelmingly. I would yield.
For his observations. Mr. Speaker, in fact, I am for an agreement that is being worked on right now that has $300 billion, a third of the 908 that's set aside for small businesses, for exactly the reasons that the Whip points out, that we want to make sure that we can keep as many small businesses in businesses as possible, which is why we ought to pass legislation. But we're not holding small business hostage any more than we're holding those on unemployment hostage, any more than we're holding states and localities hostage, any more than we're holding schools hostage, any more than we're holding child care and CDC, DBG hostage, or emergency assistance on farm aid or nutrition aid. None of those are being held hostage. What is happening? They all need to get resources to meet the challenges they face. And that's what we believe needs to happen. All of those need to be addressed. All of those need to be included in a bill that hopefully we will pass in the early part of next week. And I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and we'll continue to push to get that relief, starting with the Shabbat bill, hopefully with other things, but at least let's bring those items that we are in agreement on to the floor. Millions of jobs are at stake. Finally, I want to ask the majority leader about reports that have come up about a member of the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Swalwell, having some kind of ties to a Chinese spy. There are alarming issues that are being raised. We haven't gotten a lot of answers. I know many are asking, was it known prior to the time he was put on the Intelligence Committee that there was this relationship with a Chinese spy? There are also reports that the Chinese spy also was able to infiltrate his office and possibly put other spies in his office. Is the gentleman was the gentleman aware? Maybe it was just the speaker that was aware, but were y'all aware of this tie to Chinese spy prior to him being put on the committee, and why is he still on the Intelligence Committee? And I would yield.
I thank the gentleman. I don't have the facts, but obviously our position is that if there are facts being raised that ought to be looked at, they ought to be looked at. But I don't have the facts and don't want to comment on the issue itself because I don't know enough about it to do so. But I think all due diligence will be pursued. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. I hope we get those answers. These are serious questions that have been raised. And we're talking about a committee that deals with the most sensitive intelligence information. In fact, most members of Congress don't have access to that level of intelligence that members of the Intelligence Committee get, and possibly their staffs have the ability to see some of that. And if an office was infiltrated by spies from a foreign country, especially China, at a time when we are investigating China and raising serious questions about them, these are questions that need to be answered, and I hope we get answers soon. With that, if the gentleman
well, the gentleman yelled because I didn't mention one bill that's still percolating. We passed it 335 to 78. The Senate passed it, I think, 86 to 14 or something like in those terms. The National Defense Authorization Act. It is going to be going to the President soon. I'm hopeful the President will sign it. If he does not sign it, that will be another issue that may be considered. On the other hand, I have indications that perhaps there will be a substantial number of Republicans who voted for the bill who may not vote to pass it over the President's veto, and so we'll have that to consider as well. I just wanted to make, because I hadn't mentioned that, I wanted to mention that that's still on the docket. I yield.
And thank the gentleman. Clearly, President Trump's expressed his concerns about some items in and not in the National Defense Authorization Act, and ultimately we'll see soon if he signs it or vetoes it. He's obviously got to weigh all of those decisions as he's doing right now.
If the gentleman yield,
I would yield.
I just want to, I hope he will sign it. I know he has concerns about a section that Senator Inhofe said ought not to be in the bill, but whether it should or not should not be, it is not in the bill. The conferees determined that it should not be in the bill. And as the gentleman knows, this has great consequences for our national security and for our troops. And I would hope the gentleman, and I would urge the President to sign the bill. I thank the gentleman, and I yield back the balance of my time.
No, thank the gentleman, and we'll continue to work on these items that we need to get resolved. Hopefully we'll get resolved in the coming days. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.